Hello and welcome live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Gautam Roy and this is the first day of the year, so a very happy New Year. And coming up for the next hour, the police termed the New Orleans French Quarter truck crash a deliberate act. An improvised explosive device is also found at the site as the FBI takes over the probe, terming it as an act of terrorism.
Man driving a pickup truck down Bourbon Street at a very fast pace, and it was very intentional behavior. This man was trying to run over as many people as he possibly could.
Slovak Prime Minister Fico says his government is considering reciprocal measures against Ukraine, such as halting electricity supply for stopping Russian gas flows. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi chairs 2025's first cabinet meeting on day one of the new year. Key decisions taken related to the welfare of farmers and much else. And Indian pacer Jasprit Bumrah goes past Ravichandran Ashwin's record to become the highest ranked Indian test bowler in the ICC rankings history. At least 10 people have been killed and more than 35 others injured after a truck drove into a crowd in New Orleans' French Quarter on Wednesday in the United States. The tragedy took place when a person said to be hell-bent on carnage drove this pickup truck at high speed. New Orleans Emergency Preparedness Agency earlier warned of the incident in the district known as the French Quarter and cautioned people to stay away from the area. According to reports, the suspect has been killed. The attacker shot at the police as well, who fired back. 2 officers were also wounded and were said to be in a stable condition. The police described the suspect's actions as a deliberate attempt to run over as many people as he possibly could. The FBI, which has taken over the probe, says New Orleans ramming attack is not a terrorist attack, but it is being treated as an act of terror. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden has called New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell to offer full federal support after this horrific tragedy. Biden has been briefed by the FBI and Homeland Security officials on what the White House called a horrific attack.
It did involve a man driving a pickup truck down Bourbon Street at a very fast pace, and it was very intentional behavior. This man was trying to run over as many people as he possibly could. This man, this perpetrator, he fired on our officers from his vehicle when he crashed his vehicle. 2 of our officers have been shot. They are stable.
You'll hear more after me. However, I have been in direct contact with the White House, with Governor Landry, and of course a unified command who is present here. What I'm asking at this time are prayers for those who have lost their lives in the city of New Orleans due to this tragedy. In addition to that, I'm asking the public to stay clear of 8 blocks around Bourbon Street. Stay clear from Bourbon Street, 8 blocks around. Very active, and again, a unified command is in place right now.
Let me now take you across live to DD India's Jessica Taneja, joining us from the newsroom. Now, Jessica, what more can you tell us about this deliberate ramming of New Year revelers in New Orleans, which is also known as the birthplace of jazz music?
That's correct, and not a great day at all for those revelers. In fact, a great popular spot is now a grisly crime scene, something that no one imagined. But from the updates that we've received so far, is the fact that now the Department of Homeland Security will also be assisting the FBI and the local enforcement authorities in terms of investigating the intent of the attacker when it comes to this low-tech vehicle ramming incident. And perhaps in some time there will be more clarity. And as you pointed out earlier, the White House has taken note of it. So has President Joe Biden, who's keeping a close watch. It's been a tragic moment for the people of New Orleans, especially for the French Quarter, where Bourbon Street is where most of the revelers would come, not just for the brilliant jazz music that it hosts, but also for various other activities. There were 2 open-air concerts also taking place, and many games as well that were planned there in the initial time, as we are being told, but those seem to have not been affected by this incident, although you heard from the superintendent of police of New Orleans there, and Kirkpatrick, who did say that there was, this was meant to create a carnage-like situation. And if you look at the security that was deployed earlier, reports also seem to suggest that those streets were closed for vehicular traffic because in the evening it opens up for the pedestrians. So there seems to be no clarity, so to say, as to why that street would eventually see the attacker in a pickup truck, no less, ram into people and into a crowd full of people who were there to just celebrate their New Year's Eve and perhaps return from the night on a much happier note, which doesn't seem to be the case now.
Yes, the city is set to host a college game later in the day called the Sugar Bowl. Now, what is the FBI saying, Jessica, about the attack and the attacker? And now that it is classified it as an act of terrorism, but there was some debate about it earlier as well, wasn't it?
Well, there certainly was between the mayor of New Orleans and the superintendent of police of New Orleans and Kirkpatrick, because when we heard from the mayor, she seemed to have suggested that it was a terrorist attack, but then only later in the press conference from the superintendent of police and Kirkpatrick that we heard that it was not an incident of terrorism that was still under investigation. But very recently, about a few minutes ago, there was an update where FBI now is calling in an act of terror. That confusion set in motion because of the definition that the FBI sort of refers to when it comes to a terrorist act. But if you look at the identity of the attacker, which hasn't been told by any of the enforcement authorities there, no reports have come in on that, wherein the question right now rests on the intent of the attacker. That is what is being investigated at this point, to understand the intent, because even if it is an act of terror, now that the FBI is investigating it through that lens, it would have to come with an intent. And certainly one will wait for what that is. But what we do know so far is that from the police authorities that we've heard, that the attacker deliberately planned it because the city, as the security situation on the ground was, had barricades in place and bollards in place. But some initial reports seem to suggest that those bollards were old and were replaced by stainless steel ones, and the city had gone through an infrastructure overhaul. But that certainly wasn't enough to save those 10 people who lost their lives on an otherwise really pleasant evening.
Yes, certainly a high-speed, heavy vehicle being driven through pedestrians, literally very, very tragic incident indeed. But tell us about the curious case of an improvised explosive device also being found on the scene, and I believe now a long gun has also been found.
That's correct. The long gun perhaps is being referred to, if I'm not wrong, to the assault rifle that was found with the attacker. And as the event unfolded, the attacker not only, ran the crowd with this pickup truck, but also then fired at the police authorities, who then, of course, prevented his, attack from going further and had neutralized him there and then, and 2 police officials were also injured in that particular moment. So that's what exactly we know so far. But when it comes to the security situation, and when you talk about the particular intent, that is yet to be established. But from how these moments have unfolded, it certainly rests on the investigation and the investigative authorities to determine as to what the intent really was and how this could have been prevented. Initially, there were reports suggesting that improvised explosive devices or IEDs were found near the spot, but that was later clarified by the supervisors in the case from the federal authorities, suggesting that they may not be connected because the attacker was carrying an assault rifle.
Yes, and we've seen this mode of attack being carried out in different parts of the world, and it's been some time that such attacks have been carried out as well. So perhaps the protocols that are put in place for security in times of when people gather in streets for celebrations or other purposes, they perhaps need to be looked at very carefully as well and revised if that is possible. Thanks a lot for the moment, Jessica Tareja. Now, Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico has said that his government is considering reciprocal measures against Ukraine for stopping Russian gas supplies. The next report examines the ramifications of this development. That is, in fact, another twist in the Russia-Ukraine conflict with implications for not only Europe, perhaps even beyond.
The Russia-Ukraine conflict took another twist on Wednesday as Russian natural gas exports via Soviet-era pipelines running through Ukraine to Europe were halted following the lapse of a transit agreement. As a result, Eastern European nations began bearing the brunt of the supply disruption, with energy crisis taking center stage. Slovakia, Moldova and Bulgaria are among the hardest hit countries. Kyiv's immediate neighbor Slovakia blasted the move, warning that it would be Europe that ultimately pays the price. Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico said his government was considering reciprocal measures against Ukraine, including halting backup electricity supply if the gas transit is stopped.
In world politics, it absolutely applies that it doesn't matter whether elephants love or fight. The grass always suffer. I don't want Slovakia to be such grass as we see these days when the transit of gas through Ukraine is stopped, which will have drastic impacts on all of us in the European Union, but not on Russian Federation.
Moldova has declared a state of emergency. Moldovan leaders have implemented energy-saving measures and assured residents of temporary gas reserves. But there are ongoing fears of a humanitarian crisis in Transnistria. Almost a third of the Russian gas sold to Europe was transported via Ukraine. On Thursday, President Vladimir Putin warned that there was no time left this year to sign a new Ukrainian gas transit deal and place the blame squarely on Ukraine for refusing to extend the agreement.
Ukraine said that they wouldn't extend the gas transit contract. We did not terminate the contract. They said they wouldn't extend it. If that's what they want, so be it. They are hand-fed by Europe. Because, like I said, without European support, Ukraine not only is unable to battle, but cannot exist in general. And now, Ukraine punishes Europe by shutting down the transit contracts.
The European Commission has stated that the EU was prepared for the gas cut-off. It emphasized that the European gas infrastructure is flexible enough to supply gas from non-Russian sources. It added that the EU has bolstered its infrastructure with significant new LNG import capabilities since 2022. Syed Afsarul Hassan for DD India.
And at least 2 people were injured and 6 more, 2 people were killed, I believe, and 6 injured in a Russian drone strike in Kyiv early Wednesday. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko confirmed that 2 floors of a residential building were partially destroyed, while debris from a downed drone damaged a National Bank of Ukraine building and a non-residential structure in another neighborhood. And we'll return to this story about this gas supply which has been stopped to Europe from Russia by Ukraine, but still to come on DD India NewsHour. Bulgaria and Romania fully join European Union's free travel Schengen area. Investigators finished extracting data from one of the black boxes from the damaged Jeju airplane in South Korea incident. And Macron acknowledges error on early elections in New Year's speech in France.
The delicate balance between human and animal coexistence has become a growing problem. Finding sustainable ways to coexisting together and thriving in a rapidly changing environment.
Tell them not to panic. Instead, they should just stand completely still and let the lions walk past peacefully. This is how we show respect to the animal and in turn gain its trust.
After the plantation of lemon trees, the elephants stopped entering the fields. They passed by the field boundaries without entering.
Poaching gangs and trafficking gangs that go after these elephants and capture them, things like that. And that's something that we are all up against.
We should try to modify the human behavior through education and awareness.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, in the latest twist to South Korea's ongoing political saga, senior aides to impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol, including his chief of staff, policy chief, national security advisor and special advisor, tendered their resignations. Now, despite the offer of mass resignations, acting President Choi has rejected them, saying that the immediate focus should be on strengthening the nation's economy and stabilizing governmental affairs. More in this report.
South Korean investigators announced they would execute an arrest warrant for former President Yoon Suk-yeol by January 6 over his declaration of martial law. Yoon, who was impeached for attempting to undermine the civilian rule, has been evading questioning, prompting the Corruption Investigation Office to request the warrant. Meanwhile, senior aides of impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol, including his chief of staff, offered to resign on Wednesday, a day after acting President Choi Sang-mok appointed 2 justices to Constitutional Court. Yoon's chief of staff, the policy chief, the national security advisor and special advisor on foreign affairs and security, as well as other senior secretaries, tendered their resignation. The arrest warrant for former president did not go down well with the supporters, who turned up with placards with slogans like "rigged election" and also were chanting "Stop the Steal." They continued protesting outside his residence on the first day of 2025 in support of the impeached president.
The system of the Republic of Korea is facing a crisis because of the illegal impeachment, so I came here with my daughter. Even if it's just small support, I came here to protect the country.
Near the pro-Yoon rally were members of the Jinbo Party, one of South Korea's fringe opposition groups, holding their own rally against the impeachment of President Yoon. Some party members even attempted to block police efforts.
We are here in front of the president's official residence, where the ringleader of the insurrection, Yoon Suk-yeol, is staying. We, the Jinbo Party, think that we cannot have new hope for the new year of 2025 without arresting the leader of the insurrection.
Despite the resignation offers, acting President Choi has also chosen to reject it, stating that the immediate focus should be on strengthening the nation's economy and stabilizing government affairs. Choi's decision to fill court vacancies has sparked criticism, with members of Yoon's People Power Party accusing him of acting without proper consultations. Bureau Report, DD India.
And now updates on the South Korean plane crash as well. As the investigation continues into the specific cause of the Jeju airplane crash, authorities on Wednesday announced that all 179 of those who died have been identified. The Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters confirmed the identities of the last 5 victims who had not been previously identified. The country's acting president, Choi Sang-mok, at a disaster response meeting said the process had finally been completed and that more bodies had been handed over to relatives so that they could hold funerals. Victims' families will, for the first time, be taken to the site to pay their respects later in the day.
Identification of all 179 victims were completed overnight. The bodies of victims were transferred to their family members, and funeral services have started after the bodies of victims arrived at funeral halls. Currently, South Korea's investigators, along with the US National Transportation Safety Board and manufacturer, are conducting a joint investigation of the cause of the accident. The cause of the accident will be revealed by comprehensively analyzing and reviewing detailed investigations of the aircraft, fuselage and black box.
Meanwhile, South Korea's Transport Ministry has said that flight data recorder of the ill-fated plane will be sent to the United States for analysis. Investigators probing the Jeju air crash have extracted the initial data from one of the Boeing 737-800's black boxes. According to the Deputy Minister for Civil Aviation, Ju Jong-wan, the initial extraction has already been completed for the cockpit voice recorder, and experts are still determining the method to extract data from the second black box, the flight data recorder. Residents from Romania and Bulgaria can now travel freely in the Schengen area. The combined 25 million residents of both the countries now join nearly 450 million EU citizens who already have the freedom to move around the Schengen zone after land border checks were officially lifted. The duo first joined the European Union 17 years ago, and negotiations to enter the Schengen area began in 2011. When the European Commission gave the green light to the countries in December, it marked an important signal to citizens of the two countries that they could now feel like fully fledged members of the European Union. Now, full membership will boost GDP and reduce border wait times. For better understanding, we now show you the map of the European Union and the Schengen zone after Romania and Bulgaria joined it as well. The Schengen zone was first established in 1985 and now includes 29 countries, most of which are EU nations, as well as some non-EU countries including Iceland and Switzerland. Israeli military vehicles were seen moving within the buffer zone in the Golan Heights on Wednesday as part of the ongoing operations on the opposite side of the fence that have persisted since the fall of the Syrian Bashar al-Assad regime. From the Israeli-occupied area, soldiers patrolling the gate to the United Nations-administered area of separation, utilizing a variety of vehicles. The United Nations Security Council extended a long-running peacekeeping mission in the Golan Heights for 6 months and expressed concern that military activities in the area could escalate tensions. Israeli officials have described the move as a limited and temporary measure to ensure the security of Israel's borders, but have given no indication of when the troops might be withdrawn. Saudi Arabia has launched a humanitarian air bridge to Syria, delivering food, shelter and medical supplies. The spokesperson for King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center said, and I quote, "This aid will not stop until we achieve the desired results of this intervention and generous intervention, and until we see tangible results on the ground," unquote.
This aid drive begins with 2 planes arriving at Damascus International Airport, coming from King Khalid International Airport in Riyadh. At the same time, there will be a land bridge starting from Saudi Arabia, passing through Jordanian territory, and then reaching Damascus to distribute aid to those affected inside Syria.
In a rare moment of contrition and regret, French President Emmanuel Macron has recognized that his decision to call early parliamentary elections in June had created more political instability in the country. Macron shocked the nation halfway through 2024 by calling elections early, a gamble that backfired when voters delivered a hung parliament with a big increase in far-right lawmakers, diluting Macron's power. In a televised address ahead of New Year celebrations, Macron said the dissolution caused more divisions in the assembly than solutions for the French people. In its first meeting of 2025, India's cabinet, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the 1st of January, introduced key measures aimed for the welfare of farmers. Giving information about the cabinet decisions, Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav said that the allocation for PM Crop Insurance Scheme has been increased to more than 69,000 crore rupees. He also said that a separate fund of 800 crore rupees has been constituted for innovation and technology.
आज सबसे बड़ा एक फैसला लिया गया कि प्रधानमंत्री फसल बीमा योजना, a scheme which has really made a big difference in farmers' lives, उसका enhancement, उसके allocation को enhance किया गया, 69,515 करोड़ किया गया. साथ ही साथ एक 800 करोड़ रुपीस का फंड क्रिएट किया गया है, जो कि फंड फॉर इनोवेशन एंड टेक्नोलॉजी बेसिकली किसानों के संबंधित मामलों में टेक्नोलॉजी का उपयोग करके और स्पेशली इंश्योरेंस में, बीमा में फास्टर असेसमेंट हो. क्रॉप डैमेज अगर हुआ है, एडवर्स वेदर के कारण कोई प्रॉब्लम आई है, तो उसका असेसमेंट फास्ट हो, क्लेम सेटलमेंट फास्ट हो और टेक्नोलॉजिकल ट्रूथ से डिस्प्यूट्स में कमी आए.
The 1st of January is the 67th Foundation Day of the DRDO, or India's Defence Research and Development Organization. Let's look at the achievements of DRDO in the year gone by in this special report by DD India's Nandita Dagar.
12th of January 2024, the DRDO conducted a successful flight test of the new generation Akash or Akash NG missile from the integrated test range Chandipur off the coast of Odisha. The Akash NG system is a state-of-the-art missile system capable of intercepting high-speed, agile aerial threats. The successful flight test paved the way for user trials. 5th of February 2024, 4 flight trials of high-speed expendable aerial targets or HEAT Abhyas was successfully carried out by DRDO from the integrated test range Chandipur in Odisha. The trials were conducted with 4 different mission objectives in a revised, robust configuration using a single booster designed by the Advanced Systems Laboratory, Hyderabad, to provide reduced launch acceleration. 29th of February 2024, Very Short Range Air Defence System missile was successfully tested from a ground-based portable launcher off the coast of Odisha from integrated test range Chandipur. These tests were carried out against high-speed unmanned aerial targets under different interception scenarios. 11th of March, the first successful flight test of indigenously developed Agni 5 missile with multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicle technology. The flight test named Mission Divyastra was carried out from Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Island in Odisha. Various telemetry and radar stations tracked and monitored the multiple re-entry vehicles. The mission accomplished the designed parameters. 18th of April 2024, the DRDO conducted a successful flight test of Indigenous Technology Cruise Missile or ITCM from the integrated test range in Chandipur off the coast of Odisha. On 23rd of April 2024, DRDO unveiled the lightest bulletproof jacket in the country. The jacket is based upon new design approach where novel materials along with new processes have been used. The front hard armor panel of this jacket defeats multiple hits, about 6 shots of sniper rounds in both ICW and standalone design. 1st May 2024, supersonic missile assisted release of torpedo or SMART system was successfully flight tested from Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Island off the coast of Odisha. 29th of May 2024, the DRDO successfully flight tested the Rudram 2 air-to-surface missile from Su-30 MKI platform of the Indian Air Force off the coast of Odisha. 17th of November 2024, successful flight trial of India's first long-range hypersonic missile from Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Island off the coast of Odisha late on November 16th, 2024. This hypersonic missile is designed to carry various payloads for ranges greater than 1,500 kilometers for the armed forces. In New Delhi, this is Nandita Dagar for DD India.
And still to come on DD India NewsHour. We'll be speaking with our expert guest over the implications of the halting of Russian gas supplies to Europe via Ukraine. And And India's coffee exports cross the $1 billion mark for the first time.
Goa, an adventure paradise like none other. From lush forests to rugged hills, from pristine ocean beach stretches to stunning lakes, there is something to explore in every corner of the state. And some adventures are wilder than others. Watch postcards from Goa on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Gautam Roy. Let's now return to our top story about Ukraine ending the supply of Russian gas to Europe, which has triggered some divisive grumbling among some European nations and even hardships for a very small region. We're joined by Ambassador Mohan Kumar, former senior diplomat, to talk about it. Good evening to you, Ambassador Kumar. Now, what does this decision mean for Europe, although the EU says it has been lining up alternatives for Russian gas supply ever since the Ukraine conflict really broke out in 2022?
Illustrates two things, Gautam, from my perspective. One, it illustrates the geopolitics of energy. And this is not just economic considerations, as you will appreciate. It's a fallout of the conflict in Ukraine. So it's a question of Europe trying to reduce its dependence on Russia. So geopolitics is playing a huge role in this decision by Ukraine. Second, this decision was expected. So I would describe it more or less as symbolic. Yes, it will have an impact, and we have seen gas prices go up from 45 euros per megawatt hour to 50 euros per megawatt hour, but nobody can pretend that this decision was not coming. It was definitely coming. Russia knew it, Ukraine knew it, the countries of Europe which depended on Russian gas knew this. Third, it illustrates the difficulty for Europe in arriving at a common position. Both Hungary and Slovakia are led by leaders who are pro-Russian. They don't want this closure of this pipeline. In fact, you will observe that just 2 weeks ago, the newly elected leader of Slovakia, Robert Fico, was in Moscow meeting with Putin and trying to tell him that, listen, we should continue with energy cooperation and so on. So all in all, I don't want to go on and on, but you will appreciate there are too many contradictions involved. There is geopolitics involved. And dare I say, there is also a bit of hypocrisy involved, because not all gas supplies from Russia will cease forthwith. Countries will continue to depend on Russian gas. But yes, EU has definitely succeeded in reducing its dependence on gas from Russia.
But again, the decision is skewed in favor of the richer EU nations, and those which are poorer with lesser means, both in terms of monetary as well as physical. They're the ones who are saying, like Slovakia is saying, that this is a bad decision. And you have a region, the Transnistria region, which is a breakaway region, that is saying that we are having to cut off gas when temperatures are going down to 0 degrees and even lower than that.
No, you're absolutely right. The countries broadly affected are Austria, Slovakia, and, as you said, Transnistria, which is really a breakaway region of Moldova. The worst affected is the breakaway region of Moldova, the capital of which is Chisinau, and I am told they even have permission now to collect firewood. If there are in rural areas, they can collect firewood and use it for burning so that it gives them a little bit of heat, because all electricity supplies are going to be cut off. So that region is the worst affected, and as you rightly say, it's one of the poorest regions of Europe, not yet a member of European Union, but one of the poorest members of Europe. So it's going to be affected the most. Slovakia is also affected economically because Slovakia was benefiting from the fees that all of this pipeline, which actually goes from Serbia to Ukraine, actually ends up in Slovakia. And from Slovakia, it was, I think, further supplied to countries like the Czech Republic. Now that this pipeline will be off, Slovakia will pay a heavy economic price. Slovakia will be able to diversify its gas supplies. So I don't think there will be power outages in Slovakia, but Slovakia will take a big economic hit. The country which will not be hit that much is Austria. And as you rightly said, it's a rich country. They have managed to get gas from Qatar, United States, elsewhere, and keep their storage at 90% for this winter. So Austria will not be affected by this decision by Ukraine, but most certainly Moldova, the breakaway region, and Slovakia will be affected. Slovakia and Hungary are led by leaders who are pro-Putin or pro-Moscow. Both those countries don't like this. Incidentally, Hungary will continue to receive Russian gas because there is another pipeline, which is the Turk Stream pipeline, that is not going to be affected at all. So it would be wrong to say that with this decision, EU will stop taking gas from Russia. Two other avenues will remain open. One is the Turk Stream pipeline, as I said. The other is really Russian gas, which will come through liquefied natural gas and will find its way to Spanish and French ports. So those will continue, but you are absolutely spot on. Poorer countries will be more affected than the richer European countries.
And let me also bring in what Robert Figo said about Ukraine itself, saying that they might have to take reciprocal measures and cut off electricity to Ukraine, which already has frequent attacks on its electricity infrastructure by Russia and its drones and missiles. And what sort of an impact could that have if that sort of a threat? It's an extreme threat, considering it's the height of winters now, if it's carried out.
It demonstrates to you that EU unity on the question of Ukraine is not very tight or very strong. It's fragile. And Slovakia has issued a threat so far. I'm not sure they will carry out the threat. Should they carry out the threat, Poland has said that they will step in and make electricity supplies to Ukraine. But as I said earlier, it demonstrates to you that EU is far from completely united on this issue of Russian gas, and it is increasingly difficult to get an absolute consensus among all European countries on the decision to stop Russian gas from entering EU. There is also, as I said, double standard, because while there are sanctions on Russian coal and Russian fuel, there is no sanction on Russian gas. So that is also a bit of a problem, but that gives you an idea of how complicated it is for the Commission in Brussels to arrive at a unified position for EU on the question of energy.
And let's not forget that all this could change pretty soon after the 20th of Jan, after the Trump inauguration, when Donald Trump takes over as the next US president. I really don't know what to ask you about that eventuality, because we don't know what's going to happen after that at all. It could go the way that Trump has been indicating, that he, through some magic wand, will stop the war, will end the war within a matter of a few hours, or it might not.
No, you're right. There is the unpredictability of Trump. And anyway, we just have to wait out a little to know what is going on. One thing that will happen is that Europe might convert this situation to its advantage by saying to the US, we will buy more LNG from the United States to tackle the trade deficit, provided Trump does not impose additional tariffs on EU goods and services. So EU, Brussels might use the buying of gas from the United States as leverage to ensure that there are no additional tariffs imposed by United States on goods and services from EU. But as I said, it's hard to tell. And as you rightly said, we have to just wait it out and see what Trump brings to the table on the issue of the conflict in Ukraine.
And this geopolitics of energy that you talked about initially, Ambassador Kumar, with what is happening now between Ukraine and Russia, the stopping of the gas supply to Europe, at least through one route, could it have any implications for India?
It will, and that's an excellent question. The increase in price of gas will have an implication for India, because India has also started buying a lot of energy from the United States. And if gas prices increase, you see, we are under pressure to move away from coal. We cannot at once move from coal to solar or nuclear. So the gradual change will be you move from coal to gas, and then you move from gas to nuclear and to solar. Now, gas, if it becomes more and more expensive, you know as well as I do that 80% of our energy requirements are imported. This increase in the bill for energy will hurt India's fiscal deficit, and it will in turn affect India's GDP. So you're quite right. The price of gas will make a difference to India's economy.
All right. Well, let's leave it there at the moment and see how things play out. Waiting 20th of January. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Ambassador Kumar. Now, in the new year, Indian government has offered an innovative gift to its citizens who are engaged in teaching, studying or research. The unique program, One Nation, One Subscription, aims at providing access to thousands of research articles and journals on a single platform to those in higher educational institutions. It's a new and unique scheme with no parallels existing in the country till now. Here's a report.
In a historic decision, the central government has approved the One Nation, One Subscription scheme, which seeks to make academic research accessible to everyone. With a budget of 6,000 crore rupees, the scheme will be implemented over 3 years from 2025 to 2027. Starting January 1st, the first phase will make more than 13,000 journals available to over 6,300 government academic and research and development institutions. The scheme will provide over 1.8 crore students, teachers and researchers free access to thousands of journals and high-quality research publications. Students from Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities will also benefit from this initiative. It is expected to promote interdisciplinary research in the country, benefiting scholars and research from various fields.
We are expanding this access to our state public universities and other universities who do not have any budget to subscribe to these journals. So it is available to all the readers, particularly state public universities who earlier did not have funds, or affiliated colleges who did not have funds to subscribe to this.
The One Nation, One Subscription scheme involves 30 leading international journals publishers covering areas such as science, technology, engineering, mathematics, medicine, management, social sciences, and humanities. Beneficiaries will have access to complete collection of journals published by each participating publisher. This initiative expands upon the efforts made over the past decade to provide quality higher education to India's youth. It will complement the government's National Research Foundation initiative, which aims to foster a culture of research and innovation across government universities, colleges, and research institutions. By enhancing the ease of doing research for students, teachers, and researchers at government institutions, the scheme aspires to establish India as a global research ecosystem. One Nation, One Subscription scheme. Objective to make academic research accessible to all, budget of 6,000 crore rupees. Implementation over 3 years. Launch of first phase on January 1st, 2025. Over 13,000 journals for 6,300 plus government academic and R&D institutions. Beneficiaries include 1.8 crore plus students, teachers and researchers. Free access to thousands of journals and high-quality research publications. Benefits extended to students from Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Focus on promoting interdisciplinary research, benefiting scholars and researchers across fields. 30 leading international journal publishers participating. Subjects include science, technology, engineering, mathematics, medicine, management, social sciences, and humanities. Full access to the entire collection of journals by participating publishers will be ensured. Nishant Saurabh's report for DT India.
Now, traditionally a tea exporter, India is making significant inroads into the global coffee export market. Total coffee exports during the current financial year up to November have crossed the $1 billion mark for the very first time. According to data from the Centre for Monitoring Indian Economy, India's coffee exports rose to a record high of $1,146.9 million between April and November in FY 2024 compared to $803.8 million during the same period last year, registering a 29% rise. This figure is nearly double the exports during the same period of FY 2021, which stood at $460 million. The sharp growth is partly attributed to a surge in Robusta coffee prices, which account for over 40% of global production. Hailing this achievement, CEO of Coffee Board of India, Dr. K.G. Jagadish, said India is all set to end the year on a high note in terms of coffee exports.
From April to November, we already achieved $1.15 billion worth coffee exports, which is, I think, a new record. And by the year end, government has given for this year $1,412 million USD export. Out of that, 81% we have already achieved now. And what we have achieved so far itself is a record. But the end of the year, we will be achieving a new record in terms of coffee exports. Thank you.
And still to come on DD India NewsHour. India's Prayagraj gears up for Mahakumbh 2025. And Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese meets the cricket teams of both India, which is touring his country, and Australia.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
I'm on a quest to explore the history of Goa. A land steeped in diverse and intersecting cultures and traditions.
You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Gautam Roy. But let's now tell you about the preparations underway on a war footing as Prayagraj gears up for Mahakumbh 2025. In the run-up to this mega event, grand procession by Sri Shambhu Panchayati Atal Akhara made the atmosphere electrifying. The next report examines how Prayagraj is all set for this mega festival of faith.
The Grand Mahakumbh 2025, a sacred pilgrimage and festival of faith that attracts millions of devotees and travelers from all corners of the world, is all set to begin in the holy Indian city of Prayagraj from the 13th of this month. In the run-up to the Mahakumbh 2025, a grand procession by Sri Shambhu Panchayati Atal Akhara made the atmosphere electrifying. Accompanied by traditional music and fanfare, the royal procession entered the Mahakumbh Mela premises, showcasing its spiritual and cultural magnificence.
उसको अपने सर के माथे बना के रखते पूरे विश्व को एक संदेश के साथ कि प्रयागराज की पावन भूमि वो भूमि है यहाँ पर जो आता है माँ त्रिवेणी में स्नान करता है वो तर जाता है.
Meanwhile, the Uttar Pradesh government has made extensive arrangements to ensure Mahakumbh 2025 is a memorable and divine experience for all. For the past few months, an army of workers have been diligently channelizing the rivers, widening roads and leveling the ghats to transform the city in anticipation of one of the largest religious events in the world. And the Indian Railways is leaving no stone unturned in making the journey to Mahakumbh easy and safe for the pilgrims. And more than 10,000 regular and 3,134 special trains are being run by the railways. Out of these, 1,800 trains will be run for short distance and 700 trains for long distance. Mahakumbh 2025 has now become a status symbol for people on New Year. From WhatsApp status to X, Instagram and Facebook Reels, Mahakumbh is becoming increasingly popular. People are highly attracted and impressed by the preparations and decorations of the holy event. The entire area is glowing with more than 67,000 lights at night. Bureau Report, DD India.
Let's now take a look at some other stories making news around the country. Now, Air Marshal Jitendra Mishra has taken charge as Chief of the Indian Air Force's Western Air Command. In a career spanning over 3 decades, Air Marshal Jitendra Mishra has held important command and staff appointments. He succeeds Air Marshal Pankaj Mohan Sinha, who superannuated on the 31st of December 2024. As Commanding Officer of IAF's Western Command, he will oversee the defence of India's western boundaries. Air India has become the first Indian carrier to introduce in-flight Wi-Fi internet connectivity on domestic flights. This service is now available on Airbus A350, Boeing 787-9 and select Airbus A321neo aircraft of the airline, allowing passengers to stay connected while travelling within India. 11 Naxals, including key leader Taraka Sidam, surrendered before Maharashtra Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis in Gadchiroli. A new police station was also inaugurated to counter Maoist influence. Chief Minister Fadnavis emphasized the significance of this development, saying it marks the end of Maoist dominance in the region. And time now to get you some sporting updates as well. Pacer Jasprit Bumrah has gone past Ravichandran Ashwin's record to become the highest ranked Indian test bowler in the ICC rankings history. The Indian pace spearhead has secured 907 points in the test ranking, surpassing Ashwin's 904 rating points, which was achieved in December 2016. Bumrah finished year 2024 with 71 wickets in the longest format. His stellar performance in the ongoing Border-Gavaskar series against Australia has yielded him 30 wickets and helped him consolidate his lead as the #1 test bowler in recent rankings. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese on Wednesday met with the cricket teams of India and Australia ahead of the 5th and final test in Sydney. After the interaction, Prime Minister Albanese posted on the social media platform X, and I quote, "The Australian and Indian teams have already given us an incredible summer of cricket. When the 5th test starts on Friday, the SCG will be a sea of pink in support of the great work of the McGrath Foundation. Go Australia." The Australian PM also praised Indian pacer Jasprit Bumrah, who's taken 30 wickets in 4 test matches. Australia lead the series 2-1. It only needs to draw the Sydney test to regain the Border-Gavaskar trophy after more than a decade. And Australia wicketkeeper Alex Carey has backed Mitchell Starc to be fit for the 5th and final test against India, which begins in Sydney on Friday. There are doubts over Starc's fitness after the bowler was sent for back scans. He clutched his ribs inside in the latter stages of the 4th test, which Australia won and took a 2-1 lead in the 5-match series. Carey said that Starc was one of the toughest cricketers he had played with and he would be fine. The win in the Melbourne Test means that Australia can claim the Border-Gavaskar trophy by simply drawing in Sydney. Indian women's football team is set to square off with the Maldives in the second friendly match in Bengaluru on Thursday. Head coach Joaquim Alexanderson, who will hand out more debuts in the match. Alexanderson made a thumping start to his coaching career in India as his team thrashed Maldives 14-0 in the first match. As many as 8 players made their debut, and the Swede has assured that there will be more in the second game. India are ranked 69th in the FIFA rankings, while Maldives are at 163rd position. Indian Grandmaster Ramesh Babu Vaishali clinched a bronze in the women's section of the World Blitz Championship in New York on Tuesday. She capped another strong performance by the Indian chess players after stalwart Koneru Hampi bagged the title in the rapid event. Vaishali defeated China's Zhu Jie by 2.5 to 1.5 points in the quarterfinals before losing the semi-finals. Vaishali had qualified for the quarterfinals by topping the standings with 9.5 out of a possible 11 points. She was the only Indian player in contention for a medal. Kazakhstans have ended Germany's title defense at the United Cup on Wednesday and secured their place in the semi-finals of the tennis tournament. Elena Rybenka put Kazakhstan ahead with a comprehensive 6-3-6-1 win over Laura Siegmund in the first match. Germany suffered a blow when Alexander Zverev withdrew from the quarterfinal tie due to injury. His replacement, Daniel Masur, began well, but Alexander Shevchenko prevailed 6-7, 6-2, 6-2 to give Kazakhstan an unassailable 2-0 lead in the tie. Defending champion Grigor Dimitrov has advanced to the quarterfinals of the Brisbane International on Wednesday. Dimitrov eased past Australian wildcard Alexander Vukic 6-2, 7-6. The Bulgarian world number 10 raced through the first set, then held off Vukic as the Australian raised his game in the second. The journey of Novak Djokovic and Nick Kyrgios as a doubles pair has also ended with a 6-2, 3-6, 10-8 defeat by Nikola Mektic and Michael Venus, who advanced to the quarterfinals. The duo came within 2 points of a win, but a double fault in the tiebreak allowed Mektic and Venus to clinch the nail-biter. And that's all for this edition of DD India NewsHour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. You can scan the QR code on the screen and download the app now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India NewsHour.